every night for the past couple of years or so, I'm lucky enough to sit here and talk with people from all walks of life. But one of the first well-known people outside of sports that I ever became acquainted with is this man, Art Fleming. I was broadcasting sports on the radio at KMOX in St. Louis, and you came through town hosting the GE College Bowl on the radio. This is a couple of years after the original Jeopardy.
Did it for 7 years.
Had gone off the air, and you and I became friends through that.
And oddly enough, you were the one that recommended me to KMOX and Robert Hyland, who was the senior vice president at CBS, I might add.
Oh, let's get that plug in right off the bat, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, I was told. You know, we got anyway, and that's the way it happened. It's now, February will be 10 years that I've been there.
So that's the answer for those outside St. Louis or those who don't pick up that strong signal on a Sunday night when you do that trivia show on the radio to what's Art Fleming doing now, holding forth in St. Louis?
Oh, I've had all kinds of things. Oh, he died. He was killed in a hunting accident. Or he's retired now, and he's living on his yacht somewhere in the South Pacific. All kinds of things. Actually, I'm in St. Louis at KMOX, as you know, and it's one of the most delightful experiences of my life. Thoroughly enjoy it.
You were the host of the original Jeopardy for how long?
12 and a half years, 2,858 shows. Never forgot it.
How did they come to select you? Because you had not been a game show host, but you weren't in that Bill Cullen, Gene Rayburn loop.
No, I was on a Broadway stage when I was 4 years old and then progressed through every facet of show business, from carnivals and circuses, motion pictures, radio, television, you name it. And I was doing the news right here in New York for NBC at 11 o'clock. And one day, Julianne Griffin, Merv Griffin's ex-wife, gave me a call, and she said, Merv and I were just sitting here watching the news, and I've come up with a kinky idea because of the quiz show scandals. Why don't we give the contestants the answers and let them come up with a question? For instance, if I told you 1492 was the answer, what's the question? When did Columbus discover America? 5,280 feet is the answer. What's the question? How many feet in a mile? And so on. And we had lunch, and she gave me a rundown of this idea, and I said, gee, I think it's great. Well, I figured it'll run 3 months, maybe 6 months. 12 and a half years later, it started the trivia craze, and it's now a legend in game shows.
Just to update those who might be too young to remember, there were quiz show scandals in the late 1950s where the contestants had been given the answers. So this was a twist on that.
It's now a federal offense, of course, if there's any collusion between the producers or the host and the contestants on quiz shows. But Jeopardy was the first of its type, and I'm glad to say it is a legend.
What are your thoughts on the current Jeopardy?
Well, it's a different show. They asked me to do the show when it first came back many years ago, but it's a different show. It's still one of the best shows, game shows on television, but there are three things that I just cannot fathom. Alex does a very fine job on the thing. One, they say that it's difficult, and to me, that's laughable. In fact, several months ago, the executive producer of the show bumped into me in a hotel in Beverly Hills, and he said, Art, you're killing us in the press. I said, what do you mean? He says, you're saying this show is very easy. I said, no, it's not easy. It's a joke. What do you mean? So I said, well, you have questions that we would never consider putting on the show. And he says, give me an example. I said, okay, you had one the other day, the oldest city in Canada that starts with a Q. And he says, that's very tough. And I said, oh, really?
Quaker Falls.
Yeah, that's it. No, but he says, Americans know very little about Canada. And I said, oh, well, tell me how many cities in the world do you know that start with a Q? And he looked at me like I was crazy and walked away, and he says, all right, give me another one. I said, well, you had one, the color suit that Mark Twain made famous. And he says, that's tough. And I said, oh, really? How many colors? It was white. Everybody knows. Mark Twain wore white. Well, he walked away. He thought I was crazy. The second thing, even more important, is that the pace of the show has changed. By that I mean we used to have lawyers miss law. We had ministers miss the whole category of the Bible. We had doctors miss medicine, and so on down the line. Because I would say the answer is he was the first, and then they could buzz in. See?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the
time,
to
jump on the other contestants, so they would buzz in without ample.
That's right, and they figured they knew if a lawyer had law. He figured, okay, he was 99% sure that he would know the question. But many times they were caught. But now what happens is they have to wait until Alex finishes the entire answer. So a lawyer will wait and see what is exposed under law, and if he doesn't know it, he's not going to buzz. So it's changed the pace of the game. And the third thing is the prizes. Only one winner. We had 3 winners. Whatever they won, if it's $5, they got it. If it's $2,000, they got it. Now you could be in second place $1 away from the lead, and you get a year's supply of dog food. You know, so that it's kind of chintzy.
They say the reason for that is they want to encourage boldness. Instead of someone playing it close to the vest, bet it all if you have to bet it all to catch up.
Well, that's their excuse. And then they also have, if you win more than $75,000, you only receive 75, and any overage goes to charity.
I saw that just the other day.
Yeah, I don't know what the thinking is. Yeah, I don't know what the thinking is of that. You know, it's your money. Do whatever you want with it.
I used to love it on the old Jeopardy when someone would wind up with like $5.
Yeah.
They would have $2,855.
Right, yeah.
And they would bet $2,850 in an effort to win the game, but they didn't want to go out with zero. That
so
was
they
too
kept the
embarrassing.
$5.
They kept the $5, and you would invariably say to them, "Oh, so sorry, but you do have car fare home."
That's right, yeah.
I found that to be a fine consolation.
Oh, what else can you do? You know, the way to play the game is to go there knowing you've come in with no money. If you are ahead, you're playing with their money. Play with it. Go the whole ball of wax, you know. But some people know if they've got, as you say, $5, they're going to keep it. They'll even keep $1. I don't know why, to tip the doorman or something, but that's life.
What was the most embarrassing moment ever on the show?
Oh, well, for me or for contestants?
Take your pick.
Okay, well, we had Rod Serling. Once a year, we would have a celebrity Jeopardy game where the contestants would play for charity, their favorite charity. Well, Rod Serling, God rest his soul, what a gem of a human being he was, 6 months out of the year would live in Hollywood and do his writing and his hosting of Twilight Zone and other shows. The other 6 months, he would teach a course of screenwriting at Ithaca College in New York. Well, the very first question that we hit him with, the westernmost capital on the Iberian Peninsula. And he says, Portugal. And I said, remember, I said, capital, a little more specific, please. And he says, Argentina. And then he stops, and you can see this panic on his face. He said, I don't believe I said Argentina is the capital of Portugal. Well, he was shattered. He could not remember his name. That night, when he flew back to Ithaca College, the class met him with a huge banner at the airport, and all it said was Argentina.
How good were you at the game? Did you know a high percentage?
Terrible. If I didn't have that sheet in front of me, you wouldn't find me within a mile of the studio. My mind doesn't work that quickly. I'm not good at games. I can handle being a traffic cop, which was a game show's MC's job, to be sure that all the components, just like you here with the commercials and the times and this and that, that's all you are as a traffic cop. But to play the game, I've played it half a dozen times, lost drastically each time.
But people expect you
to
be a font of information, and I'm sure they come up to you on planes or walking down the street, settle this argument for me.
Continuously.
How old was Custer when he met his Waterloo at the Little Bighorn?
Didn't Custer die in 1878? No, he died in 1876. I knew you would know that. And they get all worked up about these things.
Do you ever give them the wrong answer just to get rid of them?
No, I can't do that. No, I can't.
It's a sacred trust, I guess.
No, but see, the power of prayer, you're saying, let's hope that what I'm giving him is correct, you know. But, no, I love people. I love them coming by and asking these trivia things. I have that kind of a kinky mind that remembers little tidbits of information, and your mind is like a computer anyway. 10 years later, down the road, that information will pop up again, you know. Yeah. And so it's been an exciting experience for me. It changed my whole life. You know.
Like a cigarette should.
That's right. Now, the way that evolved, I used to do all the double work for and stand in for Ralph Bellamy on Man Against Crime. Now, Man Against Crime was sponsored by R.J. Reynolds Camel Cigarettes. And it was going along beautifully. We were filming up at the old Edison Studios in the Bronx. And one day, the ad agency, William Esty at the time, comes to me and said, Art, would you be interested in doing a commercial for a new filter cigarette? And I said, fine, what's the story? They told me. And they said, okay, this is the copy. Now, it was very natural, bland copy, but punchy. Made by the makers of Camels, R.J. Reynolds now introduces the first cigarette, Winston. Winston, the finest filter cigarette in the world, so on. Goes on for 3 months. Now, at the end of 3 months, they decide, now, we have to change the campaign because everybody in America knows and it flooded the television stations of America. They said, now we have to come up with a tricky line. And they said, now we're going to hire a writer from the East, a writer from the Midwest, and a writer from the Far West to come up with a new catchy phrase. We're going to give them 6 weeks to come up with this phrase. And after 6 weeks, they had an unveiling, so to speak, in New York of the new line. The new line was, Winston tastes good like a cigarette should. Now, how do you read this line? Winston tastes good like a cigarette should. Winston tastes good like a cigarette should. Winston tastes good like a cigarette should. We didn't know. Well, they were sponsoring a show called the Bob Cummings Show.
Love that Bob.
Yeah, Love That Bob. And it was decided that we're going to fly Bob Cummings in from California and have a meeting so that we can all discuss how this line was to be read. Now, I did the first 2 commercials, and Bob was supposed to do the last commercial on the show, and he looks at me like, is that why they flew me in just for this? I said, yep. He goes back, he says, this is such a momentous decision that I cannot give you the definitive reading right now. But he says, I'll go back to California, and in a few weeks I'll send you the tape. So we're sitting in the conference room. There is the Cummings Show, my first 2 commercials, and here comes Cummings for the first time, and he throws the line away. And he says, and folks, remember, Winston tastes good like a cigarette should. And these grown ad people jump up and down. That's the way we're going to do it. That's the way we're going to do it. And I said, oh, fine. And from that moment on, that's the way we did it. We threw the line away. Winston tastes good like a cigarette should. It was grammatically incorrect, but it was a good handle, and, of course, it made the cigarette.
Here's the brand that changed America's mind about filter cigarettes. Winston, the one that brought flavor back to filter smoking. Full, rich flavor. Winston also introduced a finer filter. It works so effectively, lets you draw so easily. Try Winston. It tastes good, like a cigarette should.
You heard a lot of Sergeant Bilko's, huh?
Oh, yeah. He was, what a guy, Phil Silvers. That was a talented man, and the scripts, normally, when you do a half-hour show, there are about 40 pages in a script. But with the Bilko, there were maybe 4 or 5 pages, and they would just have Bilko and a blank, because you couldn't write what he does, and he got all his troops going. And it was a great experience with Al Melvin, who's still in the business, doing well, and it was a training ground for a lot of great actors.
Did you play a recurring character or multiple characters?
No, a recurring character. I was a first lieutenant who was always bugging him. I was maybe on once a month. It was a small, minor part, but most of those shows were done live, and it was a great experience.
John, and as you see, he's still going strong. Art Fleming, our thanks to him and to you, and see you later.
If you like this, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more. And check out my Facebook page for other exciting content. You can play free games and win real prizes.